Hello, my name is Jonathan Goodison-Orr, and welcome to my arcade gameplay and analysis. If I were to survey a large group of people, gamers and non-gamers alike, and asked them to tell me, without thinking, what is the very first arcade video game that comes to mind, I would venture to guess the vast majority would respond with a single answer: Pac-Man. Why? Well, here's some perspective. In the 1980s, when the arcade was still the center of gravity for young people and video game enthusiasts, demand for new video games for the first time was huge and growing. To meet this demand, thousands of new arcade game titles were produced as video game developers and entertainment companies began to grasp the potential of video games as big business. While many of these titles fell into obscurity as the years went on, some, such as Galaga, Duck Hunt, Dig Dug, Space Invaders, Frogger, etc., became popular enough to leave a cultural legacy that endures to this day. Fewer still, such as Street Fighter, Sonic the Hedgehog, Castlevania, and Donkey Kong, managed to be popular enough to generate sequels and eventually create the foundation for huge video game franchises that thrive to this day. But what is the game that opened the door to making the 1980s the golden age of arcades in the first place? What is the game that was so resonant with the public and so popular that it in many ways made any of these aforementioned successes possible in the first place? The answer, of course, is the one and only Pac-Man. From its worldwide release in December 1980, Pac-Man was a video game global phenomenon that had never really been seen before. A critical and commercial smash hit, Pac-Man remains to this day one of the highest-grossing video games of all time, and the character of Pac-Man became such a pop culture icon that even those who had never set foot in an arcade could probably recognize it. And in revisiting Pac-Man for this project, it isn't difficult to see why it became such a hit in the early 1980s. Compared to the limited options that came before, Pac-Man is colorful and approachable, with simple and immediately recognizable characters and a gameplay loop that players of any age can immediately understand and enjoy. Pac-Man is, of course, a maze chase game, where the player controls the namesake character through a maze and must eat all of the dots inside of the maze, while four colorful ghosts, Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde, pursue the player or players. If Pac-Man is caught, he loses a life, and if he loses all of his lives, it is game over. It's a simple but satisfying premise that makes the game extremely easy to pick up and play. As you move through the maze and more ghosts maneuver to corner the player, you have to make strategic choices quickly. Do you continue to eat dots in a particular area so you don't have to come back? Or do you continuously move around the maze to avoid the ghosts as much as possible? Do you save your power pellets until later on when you may need them to turn the tables on the ghosts? Or do you simply prioritize beating the stage as quickly as possible? And with each time Pac-Man loses a life, you adjust your strategy to compensate for what you've already completed. For such a simple premise that you can put as much or as little thought as you want into, it captures the essential formula for satisfying gameplay incredibly well: setup, choice, and consequence. And under the hood, Pac-Man is similarly impressive, with the graphics, NPC programming, and control responsiveness all being top of the line upon its release. As a 21st century gamer, it's wonderful to rediscover Pac-Man for a little while, because not only did this game set the stage for so much of what the video game industry grew to be, but because it is still, nearly 44 years later, a simple, fun time for all. When I play the games I love today, I know I have Pac-Man to thank. And thank you very much for listening.